Hello and welcome to another Company of Heroes 3 game. My name is Fancy Josh, and today I've got a game for you between Born 1970 and Co since 2006 as our Africa Corps, and his opponent today is going to be Moody as our US. So, as you can see, this game's played around the 1100 ELO mark, and this was a viewer replay. This gentleman asked me to cast his game, and he says he's been playing Company of Heroes for 20 years, which I have as well. Good old Angeville back in the day was my jam. Veer River Valley, bring it back. Highly competitive map, I'm sure as some of you remember. But today the map's going to be Tuscan Vineyards. I've been really liking this map. I really like how far away the victory points are. On the way fringes, you kind of have to commit some units out there to get them done. I also think this gigantic cutoff point with an asymmetric, busy side is kind of fun and different take, right? I think we're all used to a lot of maps that have some pretty substantial cutoff points, and this one has it, but you can potentially ignore it, and I think that's cool. So I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on this new map. So while we wait for the action to get started today, I just wanted to say sorry about the weird uploads. Well, not sorry. It's been a weird upload schedule this week in terms of I did a bunch of I did a bunch of 2v2s. I did a bunch of viewer replays, and it's been kind of straying from my usual like let's cast only the highest level 1v1s, and that's like what the channel's all about. And I don't think I'm going to be swaying from that. I just felt like this week I got so many replays that I wanted to get through, and I thought there were some really cool games in here, and I wanted to bring them to you. So with all that out of the way, both our players, well, US player going for a fairly standard build here, with the scouts for the capturing power, engineer for the utility, and heavy machine gun for territory control. Our German player has gone for 4 Panzer Pioneers, which typically indicates that our player is going to be going for potentially grenade launchers. We'll see if that's the actual route that he goes. But that's typically what you see, especially in team games. I do like that our German player put sandbags on that point, but he's left his Panzer Pioneers there to just kind of hold the area. Obviously afraid of that scout moving in. Unfortunately for him, tanking a bunch of damage from the heavy machine gun and out of range to fire back. Those engineers winning that close range fight there. No surprise to see that. And interestingly enough, our US player has rotated into a barracks here, adding on a rifleman. It's not very common that you see folks do that. You know, I have a friend that I play a lot of Company Heroes with, and he likes to go for heavy machine gun. He likes to go rifleman into heavy machine gun and then convert them to 50 cals. And our US player does have the heavy weapons group, so maybe he's doing something like that, or maybe he just likes the flexibility of the rifleman. So German player has had his munitions and fuel stolen on this left side, so our US player is out to an early lead here, and we see him throwing down some mines. Love to see that. Gonna hold the territory he's already taken. Riflemen and close in, take this cutoff point, and things looking a little bit rough for our German. German player has gone for the tier 1, tier 2, depending on how you look at it, and added on a heavy machine gun first here. So clearly wanting that weapon to help him control the territory, and with a fuel deficit here, is going to need to rely on something other than Black Verling. Going for an ambulance next to keep his units fully healed up here. And yeah, I do like that this heavy machine gun isn't moving into the fog of war unsupported. That is generally what you want to do. You want to give vision to the unit rather than using it to scout ahead. We see a second heavy machine gun on the way as well. So it looks like we're going to see a war of the heavy machine guns here for a little bit. We did see a bazooka added on from our U.S. player. That's not surprising, right? You do want... typically, you want a bazooka against DAC, right? You need some form of anti-vehicle to deal with the half-tracks that they're going to be putting on the field early. That said, our DAC player did not go for any vehicles this game, and so the bazooka, you know, it can be used to capture, but that's all it's really going to be good for until our German player adds on vehicles. So I really don't mind this, especially, you know, as you're learning the game. Now, there are a bunch of mines here. It looks like these guys are going to find this mine as well. Only going to lose 2 of the models there, so not the biggest deal. But German player definitely starving for resources here. And adding on Panzerjäger next. So Mechanized Support Center on the way for a US player. So these Panzerjäger are a little bit early. But again, you know, I'm sure we're all used to watching the highest level. And when you don't know the timings of your opponent and you're unsure and you lose to vehicles, maybe you should build anti-tank a little more often, right? And so both our players are going to have this lack of they're going to have these anti-tank units with not a whole lot of vehicles on the field. That's okay. I do like these bazookas hunting for this half-track. Are going to find it too. Half-track's going to flee here. Should make it out no problem. Bazookas feels like they're going to continue to chase here into the fog of war, and this is a terrible path for this 250. Does look like he's going to keep backing away here. Going to eat a shot. Not going to happen. So not the end of the world there. And as expected, the German player is going for those grenade launchers. And a motor pool. So not dissuaded by the Panzerjägers already on the field. No real surprise there, right? I mean, if you build a Greyhound, you can typically outmaneuver Panzerjägers. I think we're going to see that this game. This player seemingly rather focused on this bottom side as opposed to the left side. Nothing wrong with that, although I do think he's got some opportunities here. Is going to move in with some scouts now. And Rifleman challenging these Panzer Pioneers up close here. Now, Panzer Pioneers with grenade launchers, right, they have a minimum range here. Gonna toss a grenade. Gonna eat his own grenade there. Remember, friendly fire really revamped this patch, and you can see that happening there. This guy's threw a grenade right in the center of their party and stunned the crap out of their unit. Might actually go down here on the retreat. Might barely make it there. It's gonna be close. Heavy machine gun not facing the right way. Riflemen don't see it, though. So not gonna close the distance there. Instead, going to steal away this fuel point, which I think is a great decision. If he does, in fact, do that. Maybe going down for this bottom fuel instead. Greyhound on the way for our US player. German player has gone for the Panzerjäger command. Now, I highly recommend tank busters with this battle group. Especially if you're like me and you're not super great about controlling anti-tank units. Like, if you just want to send an anti-tank unit somewhere and have faith that it's going to be able to deal with whatever vehicle it's facing down, tank busters are fantastic. Especially against something like a Greyhound. That said, 2 Panzerjägers can hang out together and basically accomplish the same thing from an anti-vehicle perspective. But yeah. Now, I say that, and I think that our US, or our DAC player might be thinking about potentially a grenade launcher instead. Sometimes you'll see that in conjunction with the grenade launchers on the Panzer Pioneers. Because, I mean, it's 2 grenade launchers. What's better than 1 grenade launcher, right? And the answer is 2. 250, not quite in range here to help out. Needs to scoot forward about 2 pixels there. Should be able to help out. Panzerjägers shooing away these bazookas here. Should say Panzer Pioneers with their grenade launcher. And it does look like our German player is going to win the fight on this top side thanks to the Panzerjägers pushing away the Greyhound. Although the Greyhound did do some damage. And, I mean, I like this from our U.S. player. Unfortunately, he's not actually controlling any of the territory on the spot side, but he's tying up a ton of his opponent's units. So, even though this is a nice push by the U.S., I think our German's going to walk away from this pretty happy. Now, standing in cover, very dangerous against grenade launchers, because if the grenade launcher lands on the opposite side of the cover like that one did, it's full damage. But if it lands in front of the cover, it's negated. It's 50% off. So, fortunately for those riflemen not getting any unlucky hits, German player going to move into that bottom side, capture some territory while he's pushing away his opponent here. And Jaegers once again scuffling with the Greyhound. Now there is a repair point set up on this guy here, but Jaeger's going to drive away the Greyhound and take this away. Love to see that. So, what is next for our German player? Didn't have a ton of fuel. Did he just tech up? Yeah, he did. Went for tier 2.5. And has picked up support elements. So, maybe some Stugs? Maybe. Does have enough fuel right now, so that could be the direction we're headed. BAR's added on for our US player. So BAR's got a buff last patch. We're not going to see that have an effect this game, but you can get bars out sooner. They're no longer locked behind your support elements tech. Not support elements, support center tech, right? Used to be you had to upgrade any of the support centers. Now you don't, so you can get them out a little sooner. Man, those riflemen barely going to stop this capture from happening. Yeah, and, you know, looking at the scoreboard here, U.S. player has done a much better job controlling the victory points, and it's starting to add up here a little bit. U.S. player's going to have a comfortable lead going into this mid-game. So BARs with just 2 riflemen is maybe a little questionable, and I think this is why you see folks, you know, when you go for rifles, you really go for rifles. Like, you're all in on the logistics, you're all in on the demolitions packages, bar rifles, right? There's a lot you can add to make your riflemen way more effective that don't necessarily benefit your team weapons as much. So, it's kind of a... I guess my point is it's a rather large fuel investment to only get bar rifles across 2 squads. That said, if we start seeing, like, double bar rifles, which we haven't yet, at least on this squad, maybe it's a little more impactful. Not trying to rag on our player, right? He probably feels very comfortable with bar rifles. I think we all have things that we rely on, and it makes us more effective with the units. But if we look at it from a min-max perspective, maybe bar rifle's not the best choice. At least at this stage, right? When you're not necessarily rolling in fuel. So, map control taken out here. Looks like it's going to favor our US player once again. Greyhound going to shoo away those pesky Panzer Pioneers. I will say both players done a great job maintaining their units here. Neither player losing any units. I think that's I think it's a byproduct of our players aren't being super aggressive, but they're also you know, paying attention to the units they have on the field and not losing them. And of course, right as I say that, Greyhound takes down this pack gun that was a little out of position. This 250 could roll in here and tow this away. Greyhound is attacking the pack here, so unfortunately for him, missing every shot. Here comes the infantry blob here to deal with this. And those Jaegers going to do a number on this Greyhound. It's pretty low health. Grenade launcher even helping out there. Jaegers getting behind the Greyhound. Greyhound fleeing away from the Jaegers, as he should. So is going to escape. Huge grenade launcher hit on those riflemen. Going to totally ruin their day. Heavy machine guns from both players suppressing all the units in the area. And this is going to be a relatively short fight, I do think, although the German player looks like he's going to win this pretty handily, especially after the suppression on those riflemen. But pack gun's still not manned, but does look like he's going to get picked up now. Grenade launcher going to engage this heavy machine gun and drive him back. So, does look like he's going to recover, and US player adding on fuel depot here, so it does feel like we're going to see some tanks from him. Now, German player does have the tools he needs to deal with this fuel point being cached up, but I think the Jaegers might want to go for this cutoff point real quick. I mean, he can do both. He can get the cutoff point, he can get the victory point. And yeah, a little bit of quiet here while our US player recovers from that big fight. He's moving out pretty quickly here. Did see the Greyhound survive. Heavy machine gun going to be seen by these Jaegers. And German player should have an opportunity to go around. Potentially there. But choosing to hold the center point instead. I think he's rightly identified that he needs to pay close attention to the victory points. And is going to do that. We do see combat half-tracks added on for a German, upgrading to mortars. So this is an expensive way to deal with heavy machine guns, right? But you do get the added utility of the smoke. That's a dead heavy machine gun, isn't it? Nice pickup there. Engineers should be able to get their hands back on that. Greyhound going to help out. No Jaegers in the area. Heavy machine gun suppressing all that infantry there. And German player seemingly focusing the cache there, wants to bring that down. So I think we are seeing both players. I'm going to use this as a learning opportunity. And again, I'm not trying to rag on our players. But I think both our players are kind of focused on... It's not the same as focused on fighting, but they are going through the hard... They're going in the hard way, right? Both players are trying to go through their opponent's heavy machine guns. We're about to see that here. Like, I mean, it's going to work because the grenade launcher's really strong here, especially at this range. Heavy machine gun barely going to survive there from the looks of it, as long as it doesn't take a bad retreat path. But we're seeing both players lose quite a bit of manpower and really focusing on just fighting each other. There were a lot of... So, like, in particular, the US player coming out of his base into a heavy machine gun there. Theoretically, should have known that there was a heavy machine gun in the area. Maybe go around, right? This point's free. This point's up for grabs, right? Send one squad over there, maybe your bazooka squad that isn't doing a whole lot elsewhere on the map, to pick up a point. Same thing there. I think, you know, our German player knew a heavy machine gun was here, knew a heavy machine gun was here, and really forced the fight. And it did work out for him, but it could have just as easily gone the other direction. And my point is, look for opportunities to go around, especially when you have so many units on the field. Now, of course, the flip side of that is, if you send a unit to an area by itself, you're going to keep it alive? Maybe. It depends. So, it's risk-reward. Second mortar added on here. I do like that he's getting the most out of his half-tracks, right? When you don't have the APM to dive on, to use your half-tracks aggressively to dive on your opponent, mortars are a great option, right? And with unit preservation, like we've seen from our German player, I think it's totally reasonable to convert those into mortars here. Bazookas are going to find the mortars. Fortunately for them, Panzer Pioneers in the area doing their thing. And Panzer III added on. So that is going to be a pretty substantial threat for a US player to deal with. This player has gone for the heavy weapons. Is adding on a Hellcat now. So Hellcat is an interesting choice into Panzer III. Panzer III's like to be up close, and Hellcats don't. But the Hellcats, you know, have unbelievable penetration power, right? So, in my opinion, they are good in conjunction with other units. You really need a strong screen to keep them alive, whether that's other tanks or just an infantry screen. You know, that's up to you. But I think a Sherman could have been a better choice here, especially with the 76mm upgrade. Now that said, I don't actually know what the 76mm costs. 40 fuel. Yeah, I mean, could afford it, potentially. Anyway. Now, if this Hellcat stays alive, could be a serious thorn in our German player's side, especially as he starts to add on more Panzer IIIs, which I do think he's planning to do. Greyhound, great use of the Greyhound here, right? He knows the threat of the Panzer III. It's being annoying in the wings of the map. Love to see more of that. I do really like this move by our US player. Again, he's recognizing his opponent is strong in the middle, and he's going around. I think that's a great adaptation here. I do really love this control over this cutoff point here. German player asserting his dominance in the center of the map there. Hellcat on the scene. Jaegers being found out by that heavy machine gun. Good hit by the Hellcat. Hellcat does not want to dive here. Is going to eat one grenade launcher. And nice little screen by the Stuart there, tanking damage for the Hellcat. Panzer III going to flee hard here. And both players kind of moving into the area. Those Vet 3 Panzer Pioneers are a force to be reckoned with, but they are going to find a mine there. And with the support of that Greyhound, may get driven back. This player is going to pick up... is going to grab up his center point here with that heavy machine gun. So is going to be reconnected to his fuel here. And given that this Hellcat has survived its first engagement, starting to like it a little bit more in this situation. See what he wants to follow up. I think a second Hellcat would definitely be a mistake, but see what he ends up doing. Bulldozer could be pretty interesting in conjunction with the Hellcat, right? Bulldozer's the opposite, right? It's tanky, it's anti-infantry, and it could be a great front line for that Hellcat. Zuka's going to get some damage on the Panzer there, and actually, this player getting really aggressive here, finding another shot with the Hellcat, but the pack gun going to keep the Panzer III safe. And does look like our US player is going to walk away with pretty significant control here. We do see a mine going down, but I'm instantly going to get mortared out of there, nearly killing the engineer. It looks like he does want to finish that decapture, but don't imagine he'll want to stay around too long. And nice little steal on this fuel, right? Continuing to try to deny his opponent resources. And the way this game is going, the more resource... You know, the game is going to go long enough that denying any amount of resources is going to pay back.
We shall put an end to this fight. Tiger heavy tanks will be made
And it looks like support elements, or excuse me, armored reserves on the way for our German player. So maybe... I mean, it's a little bit early. From a fuel and manpower perspective to go for that. But, I mean, I guess he's only 4 minutes away, 5 minutes away from having enough fuel at his current income. But I think that's a mistake you see some players make, right? And the only reason it's a mistake is because you're spending manpower on something that you won't spend fuel on for 5 more minutes, right? So if you can add on that tech closer to when you're ready to build something out of it, it can be really good. Now that said, and I could be wrong here, he might be going for Panzer Force. I don't know what Panzer IVs would get you in this particular situation in the game that Panzer IIIs won't, but some players just feel more comfortable with Panzer IVs, and if you're one of those players, nothing inherently wrong going for a Panzer IV in this situation.
Our territory is in enemy hands.
And I do like that our German player is keeping units that cover each other's weaknesses together, right? We see anti-infantry paired up with anti-tank, and when you don't have a lot of APM to spare, you can pair up units to cut down on the amount of actions you need to spend, while also not necessarily full-on blobbing, right? Because I think a lot of players fall into the trap of, let me A-move my entire army, and we're not seeing that. We're not strictly seeing that from either of our players here. Panzer III just wanting to duke it out with that Hellcat. Hellcat respecting that Panzer III, the pack there that he knows is in the fog of war. That's risky for both players. Now, both players are going to walk away with some veterancy on their tanks there, so the higher vet the Hellcat gets, the scarier it is. Let me just show you that real quick here. Yeah, I mean, the rate of fire... So the weapon accuracy at level 1 is freaking huge. Feels like these guys miss a little more than they should, given they're supposed to be snipers. But that 15% really offsets that. Then that 20% rate of fire really starting to ramp up. And then 50% weapon penetration is ungodly at tier 3. You can go through, like, pretty much anything. The machine gun going to walk straight into this infantry here. Now the... Greyhound is helping out, and I just realized that our US player has upgraded this point to be his repair point, which is an interesting choice, but does seem to be working for him. Panzer III moving up to deal with the threat, Hellcat moving down. Looks like we're going to see a brawl here in the middle. Now, it kind of feels like our US player is thinking about Pershing. Ooh, losing that bazooka is a bit rough there. Yeah, it feels like our US player might be thinking about Pershing. So... I think that might be a little unrealistic, and right as I say that, he adds on a Sherman. So I do think a Sherman is a good choice here. He needs something to get him back into this game. I mean, most importantly, he needs control over his own fuel point, and the Hellcat is not allowing him to do that. So something like a bulldozer or Sherman is going to be okay here. Does he have 76mm? He doesn't. So...
The enemy has taken a victory point.
Yep. Victory points ticking down here. Hellcat on a mission here. Does look like he's going to get found out by the Panzer, but actually I don't know if that's a fight the Panzer wants. We do see... Is that a tank buster? It is, right? It is, and that Hellcat's got to run for its life there. Tank busters doesn't look like they're going to be able to close. But nice little takeover on this top side. German player is going to walk away with some pretty massive map control here. This player moving back in, though. Gonna get shut down pretty quick. I do love to see this utility from those bazookas. Phosphorus rounds, really good in that exact situation. I guess that's a stolen heavy machine gun there that our US player just lost. Bazookas once again moving in, trying to push back these... Trying to push back the mortar half-tracks, but is going to go down once again, and yeah. This player getting real aggressive here, right? He's trying to make moves, and there's a lot going on the map right now, and I think he's losing track of his units here a little bit at the end game. But, I mean, that's the risk you take, right? You need to get something done. Push yourself to your limits in terms of micro, and sometimes your units are going to go down. I definitely have this problem in the late game. Infantry showing up a little bit late to that fight. Are going to find these Panzer Pioneers by themselves, but German player could just bring some units over and be totally fine there. Stun grenade going to go out. Deal a little bit of damage. Guess that wasn't a stun grenade, but Rifleman may go down the retreat here. I do like that our German player is punishing everything that he can, right? Despite a significant lead, needs to punish every little mistake he can. Hellcat gonna try and save the Rifleman, but not gonna arrive in time. Panzer III up to Vet 2. Hellcat having that accuracy, doing pretty well. Panzer Jaegers trying to stop this Hellcat. Pack gonna do even more here, and that might be a dead Hellcat there. Is barely gonna get out of the arc. Pack not refacing. Hellcat not gonna get greedy though. And that was very risky. But saw red after losing his Rifleman and diving deep there, trying to get something done. I do think our U.S. player canceled his Sherman. Looks like he might be thinking about the Pershing after all. But at this late stage in the game, don't know that that's going to happen. Yeah, I mean, he's 4 minutes away at his current income. If he were able to hold on to this victory point for even a little while, could potentially make that happen. But another unit going down there. U.S. player adding on some Riflemen. Try and scrape this back. But looks like the German is going to start capturing all this territory. And our U.S. player is going to be in a world of hurt here. Tank Buster's narrowly missing the Greyhound there. Greyhound is going to capture. But going to come off the point there and run smack into those Jaegers. And nice little flank here by those Tank Busters. Going to find the Hellcat. And surely that's going to be the end there. So I do think I will fast forward through these last couple minutes. Now, I definitely respect our U.S. player for not surrendering, right? You will win games that you had no business winning by staying in games, right? But I think we as observers can see that the end is nigh. Triple cap gonna make that bleed go by pretty darn quick. Yeah, I mean, really well played. I'm reading the chat there. Upset by the spam. I don't think, I mean... yeah, red player upset. I mean, it's understandable. I think, I'll just put it this way. There are a lot of things that both players could have done in that game to execute more efficiently. I don't think that our U.S. player lost because of spam. And I do think that unit preservation ultimately played the largest factor in that game. Our German player lost almost nothing, and our U.S. player lost a lot. And you might attribute that to grenade launchers, but I personally don't. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this game, and I will see you in the next video.